I'm Corbett Wall with DB Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, November the 6th, where do not forget to go out and vote. It's the most important thing you'll do all day by far. Make you feel good about yourself, feel good about an American, and we need to keep things going in the right direction, guys. Don't let some guys coming in here take over and veer us off back to the left, and we've made some sacrifices here trying to get these trade imbalances right, which down the road are definitely going to help our ag products, including beef and all your animal agriculture products, and we need to take advantage of those. If we stop now, we're not going to be able to get those deals straightened out and be able to take advantage of them. So don't undo the work we've already gotten done. Get out and vote the right way. We saw a failure to launch this fat cattle market, and it's really been a disappointing thing here all fall. We knew all year long and going through the summer that we had a chance to have a really good fat cattle market, as good as demand has been and continues to be, and we just have not taken the opportunities to gain ground when we can. We lost another one this past week or weekend late, and this market's failure to launch and get up to a decent market position has really left our investors, our fund managers that invest in the cattle futures and speculators and all those guys, they don't have any confidence in the industry's ability to get the market up, and so they're not going to support it either. You saw that after they saw that the board, after it saw that the cattle market failed to gain as much ground as it should have, you just saw that kind of a miserable day on the board to start the week on a Monday. That's what we dialed up for ourselves. That's what your feeder market, your calf market, everything's going to be as we started out on a sour note. I still think there's some opportunity as we see the big drop off on the board on a Monday. There's other people out there thinking the same thing, but at some point somebody's got to make a stand if they're going to ever get the fat cattle market up there where it's supposed to be, what everybody's been counting on. But the board, December live cattle futures down $1.75 on Monday to end the day at 115.32. That's for December. February down $1.55 to end the day at 120.65. November feeder cattle down $3 even at 149.50. January down $3.32 to end the day on Monday at 146.42. You know, we keep talking about the big disparage between April and June live cattle contracts. If you look at that, go out to April, it's at 122.30, and you go down to June, which is at 114.40, and that's the big reason that you're not seeing these guys dive into these calves that are big enough that they need to go on feed. By the time they would get them to a weight where they'd want to market them, they're going to get into that big drop off there. They can't hedge those cattle and make any money on them any higher than what they've got them right now. And if we can't get any outside support for this board, we're going to be kind of stuck where we're at for a while. Weighted average on last week's fat cattle trade. You remember we never established anything all the way through Friday. And after hours Friday, they started trying to do some business, and over the weekend, you remember a few weeks ago, I started talking about the rules that the old stockyards, the river markets, the terminal stockyard markets used to have on buying cattle out on the bricks, not in an auction market, but they used to do private treaty on the bricks out in the yards. They had rules out there that the trading didn't start till a certain time. You could come in and look at a certain time. You could leave a sealed bid, but the trading deal didn't start till a certain time, and then the trading was done at a certain time. That was to keep everybody on the playing field, to keep these slow players from dragging their feet. And if guys wanted to get in and do some trading, they wanted to sell some cattle, they wanted to buy some cattle, they'd get in and get it done when they were supposed to. That's I was saying that we needed to impose something like that. Although it's a free country, guys can do whatever they want to, but nobody follows any rules. So the Packers could just drag their feet all the way till Friday night, and then some weak sister would cave, and then they'd call the guy they've been trying to get through and say, well, so and so, he sold his cattle, so you probably need to go ahead and sell yours. Okay, I'll sell. That's kind of the way it goes. Friday, they sold 68,300 head sometime Friday. Most of it was after hours. So for the week, 5-area feeding region, 81,900 head. That's still an extremely light trade. Your Packers are still going to be hungry for cattle this week. Another opportunity to gain some ground, but I don't hold out any hope for them. I'm not sure hardly anybody else does either. But your market in the Southern Plains was mostly 116, and that was $1 higher in Texas, $2 higher in Kansas for the most part, because remember they didn't all get that 115 the previous week in Kansas, a lot 114 there. So it'll be $2 higher for the most part in Kansas, which it's good to gain some ground, but we need to be gaining it in hunks, guys, in big bites, like $3, $5 at a time. We really messed up there for 5 or 6 weeks, keeping that market steady at $1.11. And the market should have started its uprise then, be taking big bites by now, be up into the 20s, looking for 130 as a kind of a goal before the end of the year, and it's pretty evident that that's not going to happen now. But the Northern Plains steady to $1 higher from 114 to 116. You remember the previous week they had 114 to 115. Very limited dress trade. So eastern Nebraska, in the valley there, they did not sell very many cattle. They sell most of their cattle dressed. Iowa sells most of their cattle dressed. It was only steady at 180. But your weighted average on live steers in your 5-area feeding region, 114.95. That was $1.14 higher than the previous week's weighted average, but still lacked hitting 115 on your live steers. There was 49,000 live steers, only 14,000 live heifers, and the ones that sold they had a higher weighted average, a little over 115. Only 5,000 cattle for the week dressed. So there's a lot of cattle that didn't get sold last week, and if guys would dig their heels in and refuse steady or lower money again, they could gain a little bit more ground, but just keep missing these opportunities. Nationwide, they didn't sell a lot of cattle around the fringes, really. 92,500 nationwide. That's pretty light, and one good thing is only 13% were sold for the 2 to 4 week delivery. Guy tells me that he knows some people that are still got cattle that they sold on that long steady market at 111 that they haven't that they're still hanging on to, and the Packers haven't called for them yet. That's the way they slow play this market. I tell you what, they are masters at it, and you can't blame them. Anytime you're buying something, you want to get it as cheap as you can. It's the feedlot industry that's allowing them to do it, mostly because the Packers pretty much control it. The lion's share of the cattle are being fed by Packers or outfits that are lined up with Packers. They don't care what the market is. All they care about is the basis. They've got everything hedged up to their eyeballs, and it really makes no difference to them if the market's 50 cents or $5. All they're going to make a living on is the basis. Everybody hedges now. The little guys even got a hedge, because with everybody else doing it, you're completely left out in the cold. We've been running on some tight basis here the last month or two, but you remember the bulk of this year has had huge basis, $2, $3, maybe $5, and some of those guys that are hooked up that way have made some decent money in there. But you just have to feed and handle so many cattle to be able to make a living on that basis trade, and never be able to get a full hit or take advantage of an up market. But and it's bad that we're always kind of pushing the guys that are selling negotiated. They're the only ones that are holding our market, but they've got to get their heads together. They got to start working together, establishing some rules to trade by so that they can take advantage whenever the packers get short bought or need cattle and we're due for an up market. You didn't see consolidated beef producers selling a lot of cattle this last week. No, they sold a lot of cattle when it was $3 higher. They would have sold a lot of cattle again last week if they'd have got the $1.18 that they had asked for. They'll sell cattle again whenever they can take a big bite out of the market and gain several dollars. We've got to get more people getting into that mode, and you got to be aggressive, and you got to hold your ground. And you know, maybe a lot of those sellers need to read Donald Trump's book, you know, the Art of the Deal. And whenever you've got some ground, you got some leverage, you got to take advantage of it. Look at your feeder cattle markets, your real-time index on Cattle Market Central. 152.01 based on an 800-pound steer up through the middle 12 states, just like the CME feeder cattle index. That was down $1.24 from the end of last week. Of course, the board being down, your fat cattle trade being disappointing. There's no doubt why it's that way. Oklahoma City had a good run again, 10,300 head. Remember, we said that they had so many weeks there that it was wet and they didn't get a lot of cattle shipped. They've been kind of behind and they're catching up with these big runs. The feeder steers weighing 600 to 850 pounds, be a lot of them calves, some weaned, some not, some yearlings there and some of those backgrounded, but $1 to $3 lower on your feeder steers. Feeder heifers were steady to weak. They forgot to call a market on the light calves, but had some guys tell me that there was good demand around for light wheat grazing type calves there. But they did note that had a few heavier feeders, big feeders that they can still make weigh 15 or 1600 pounds and be done with them by the April board. Those big feeders like that, I had a few of them on hand. They were sharply higher. So it just kind of continues on what we had last week. Joplin Regional Stockyards, 5,400 head there. Feeder cattle there, $2 to $4 lower, be heavily influenced with calves. Lightweight steers, steady to $4 higher. They're seeing the demand for winter forage there too, just like the wheat pasture. But I'll give you a couple individual quotes on some high calves in Faith, South Dakota. They've been having monster runs every Monday there, but Faith Livestock Commission sold 111 steers, weighed 503 at $190.50, which is about as high as you see these days. And then in Palmyra, Missouri, the Browning brothers there at F&T Livestock Market, farmers and traders, that may not be politically correct, but I just love it. F&T Livestock Market, 64 head of steers, weighed 796 at $163.75, and that's extreme northeast Missouri. And that's your feeder flash for Tuesday.